Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'm Caroline Bagger from Mother Nurture Yoga. It's great to be here again. This is one of our monthly webinars which we put on with a guest speaker, and tonight's guest speaker is the lovely Alice Bullivant.
Hello.
Tonight's topic is all about emotional well-being during pregnancy and afterwards as a new mum. So it's one of those topics which is very pertinent. I see a lot of ladies with anxiety issues coming to us for yoga. It's very common, and it's quite understandable. There's so much going on during pregnancy, so many changes, so many things that you're just not sure, like new feelings. This is new, is this right? It's so... it's easy to feel quite anxious, and then particularly when you're a new mom, like you've got a new baby, what do I do? That doesn't come with a manual.
If only.
Yeah. So, look, I'm going to hand over to Alice. Alice is a holistic practitioner. So, it's wonderful to come, to keep fit and exercise and eat healthily. These things are all important, but to approach it, real health from a holistic perspective is really, it's what we do during yoga, but it's Alice's thing as well. So Alice approaches it from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective. She's a published author, and we're just very happy to have her here tonight. So welcome, Alice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. So I'm Alice. I am a holistic kinesiologist, a mind-body medicine therapist, and also an integrative medicine therapist as well. So the way that I approach things, as Caroline said, is from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, which I find really gets to the root of problems that we have in general health, well-being, emotional health, and pretty much everything in life. So what's very important for you to understand from a Chinese perspective is that everything is about balance. So the balance that we look for is a balance between yin and yang, and these are the feminine and the masculine entities that come together as one to create the whole of everything that we have. So the yin energy is the very feminine, soft, internal, still energy, and the yang energy is the very masculine, external, active, and hot energy, really. So what happens in pregnancy is obviously women are more yin than men, because obviously we're female and that's the feminine energy, but we still have the yang that we need to balance as well. So when we're pregnant, that is the most yin that you can possibly be, because obviously that is about the growth of new life and the epitome of being a woman. Interestingly enough, it's almost the most yang time of your life as well as a woman, so because you're growing. So yang is all about growth and development, and obviously that baby that you're growing is growing at the fastest rate that it will possibly grow in its entire life, even once it's born. So you have obviously very extreme yin going on, you have very extreme yang going on, and it's no wonder that you're tired. So what feeds into yin energy is actually the blood that we have in our body, and the Chinese concept of blood is more than just blood. It's all of the nutrients and any moistening sort of activities that go on in our body. So it's about lymph and water in our tissues and all sorts of things. So
I might just pause you there. We've just got a comment from Cherie saying that she's having some issues watching. Is anybody else having issues? If you can see us, can you just type yes if you can see us? Just let us know if you can see us and hear us, okay? Chantel or Rachel? Nothing.
Anyone?
Anyone out there?
Hey.
Cherie, can you, are we back on for you again now or not? Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay, excellent. So as we know, but when we're pregnant, babies take everything they need from us. So they will take all the blood and all the nutrients and everything that they need to survive. So what that actually does in terms of a Chinese medicine perspective is create blood deficiency in the body, which is not quite yin deficiency. It's quite a big topic in itself, but obviously the blood is servicing the baby's needs first and not ours. What can happen with that is that we actually get heat symptoms like the hot flushes and stuff. I know that I suffered terribly from them during my first pregnancy in particular, but we can get dry skin and brittle nails, and our hair falls out, which also happens after we have the baby. And
Still got
yes,
lots coming out.
yes. So what we need to do is actually rebuild our yin, which is rebuild our nutrients and energy and that sort of thing. So I know that with Eva and Rachel's topics that she's talked about, they're very important things in order to help rebuild your yin. And so what happens in this society now that we never used to do, years and decades and, centuries ago, is actually have that lying in period after we have a baby. We just get on with stuff. We perform very yang activities. So we are, growing a baby, then we're having a baby, then we're looking after a baby. We're possibly trying to run businesses. We're going back to work. We're going out and meeting people. We're doing all of these things, and we're not actually taking the time to actually rebuild our reserves. So what happens with that is then we actually affect ourselves emotionally, and there are things like postnatal depression, which I've suffered from myself, and that's actually a blood deficiency sign in Chinese medicine. So we do need to address the simple concept of actually rebuilding ourselves in order to help our emotional well-being, both during the pregnancy and after birth. So do you have any questions?
No, nothing. No, it's all looking good. No questions coming
Any
through
questions
yet? No.
from anyone outside?
I think traditionally in our Western culture, you're absolutely right. We do just get straight on. There's an expectation that you're just going to bounce straight back from this, and get on and get out of the house, keep busy, and that will help you. But in Indian society, for instance, and I think obviously Chinese society, more Eastern societies, and more
Polynesian cultures too. They're very good at actually.
That lying in period, or I'm not sure what it's called in the other cultures, but that is still honoured. That time when the mum is looked after as well. Yeah, and that's something that we really do need to remember in this society. We have all of these messages through social media, through magazines, through books, through other people that we've seen, where being a mum and being pregnant is a competition. You're supposed to just bounce back and cope and get on with it and all of that sort of stuff, and as a result we're suffering from that. We don't live in societies like we used to. I know with the Chinese particularly, the new mother is not allowed to get out of bed for a month. Which is actually great. People do everything for them. They do their washing, they do their cleaning, they look after the other kids. They live in those communities that we don't do anymore. We live in very siloed existences now, so we don't have the support of where mum might lie in, so auntie will look after one child, grandma will cook, another sister will clean, the dad goes out and earns money or hunt gathers and that sort of thing like we used to do in the ancient times. So my midwife said to me with my second, she said, stay in bed, because the minute you get up and change out of your pajamas, you're back to being mum.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she's so right. Gosh, I'm going to enjoy this.
That's right. And
I think
it's
it lasted
so
about
important.
4 or 5 days.
Yeah, well, I know I stayed in hospital as long as I could with my second one. I learned.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is very important. It's not that easy in this society to do those sorts of things, to take that lying in period. But, we find now that, people will offer help. And you say, no, I'm okay, I'll cope, it's fine. And that, that's exactly the point where it's, really important to take on that help so that you can actually help to rebuild yourself. Because if you can rebuild your blood and your nutrients and your emotional well-being by taking that time to just rest, you've done a huge amount of work. You've grown this baby, you've delivered this baby, and you know, that takes a lot out of you, and you need to be kind to yourself and rebuild that.
Absolutely. I had, this might be off topic, but with my second, I had placenta encapsulation.
Yep.
And I really found that made a huge difference.
Oh, it does, because that's the blood. So I wish that had been around as a very popular thing when I had my kids. They're a little bit older than that. But, you know, that is an excellent way to actually rebuild your blood, because you are literally taking effectively blood. So, and that's got all the nutrients, because that placenta has obviously fed your baby or babies, and giving yourself that really great stuff that you gave your baby can only be really good for you. So it's very important to be kind to yourself. So it's, you know, it's not a competition. So you don't need to compete with the person next to you, your sister, your mother, the people in your mother's group, that sort of thing. It's, you know, we're all working together as a community. So it's very important to take on any sort of help that's offered to you. So you can have little ones like this.
You know, and if you don't have that family support, there are some amazing services out there. Gosh, get a cleaner. Ask for a cleaner as part of your baby shower. Get some gift vouchers for foods. You know, Light and Easy, or, you know, the more local equivalents of Light and Easy. You know, they're wonderful resources. Use them.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's right. So
postnatal doulas, also wonderful.
Absolutely, take any help you can get. So it's not a symptom of, I don't know, failure or not inability to cope if you do those sorts of things. So because when you're constantly trying to be perfect, trying to be this mum that you see on the TV, on social media, and magazines, the nice picture that other people paint for you as to how good or how well they do things. That's probably better English. You know, that's not real. So everyone has bad days. Everyone has, but no one tells you that sort of stuff, because no one wants to look like they're not coping. But it's okay to, you know, be vulnerable, because that's actually part of the yin energy, is actually yielding. And yielding is not weakness. It's actually a strength in its own. So by yielding and allowing other people in and allowing them to help you will actually only benefit you in recovering from birth anyway, because you are nurturing your yin. So as well as nurturing your baby, you must nurture yourself. So because what often happens, we've talked a little bit about postnatal depression, also anxiety.
I was just about to say anxiety during pregnancy. That's something I see very often.
Yes. Well, it's interesting. In Chinese medicine, anxiety isn't a condition at all. It doesn't exist. So it's actually a symptom of something else. So it's, if we were to even loosely call it a condition, it would be a condition of excess thinking. So, but what we look for in Chinese medicine is what's actually driving that excess thinking. So the Chinese categorize everything into the 5 elements, which is water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. And each of those 5 elements actually has a specific driver that makes them behave the way that they do. So for example, I'll pick metal as one of them. I could talk for hours about this, but metal people tend to struggle with concepts around grief and guilt, and also things like value and respect and acknowledgement and that sort of thing. So they have often self-worth issues. So if they're struggling a little bit, and they're a constitutional person, a constitutional metal person, they will struggle with those sorts of concepts. So that's what would, from them, that's what actually would drive that anxiety, that overthinking is, you know, am I good enough? Am I, you know, worthy enough of having this baby? Am I, you know, going to be as good a mother as Caroline, you know, because she's very respected as a mother. So what if I'm not? And, you know, so especially being a new mum, you don't know what's right, what's wrong, and you know what's right and wrong is different for everyone. So
how do you know what element you are?
it's based on your birth date.
Oh.
Unlike astrology, it's pretty accurate. It actually gives you, from your year of birth, your month of birth, and your day of birth, it gives you rarely one element, sometimes three, and most often two. So, but there's one number in the middle, which is actually what shows you what your drivers are. The other elements will influence your behaviour, but the middle one is usually your driver. So, for example, my one, I have some metal, I have fire in the middle, and I have earth. So I'll exhibit earth behaviours by pleasing other people. That's a very earthy sort of thing. I also do have some metal, so that's why I know about the value and respect and that sort of thing. But my middle number is fire, so I'm actually driven by being loved. Being hurt and rejected is the worst thing in the world to me. So I will probably display behaviours of the other elements in order to service that need of people loving me. So, but if I, flip those the other way, I might, if I was metal in the middle, I'd be worried about being valued and respected. If I was earth in the middle, I would be worried about being needed. So, but
it's
when
complex,
you're trying,
isn't it?
Oh, it is.
What do you do to fix it?
A lot of the time I actually use acupressure points, which or acupressure, which is like acupuncture but without needles. All of the acupuncture points in the body have particular psychology. So when particular acupuncture points show up as a stress, and there's always a handful of acupuncture points that relate to whatever it is that you've come to see me for. So, for example, if you come in with blood deficiency, I'll often find mums coming in who have had quite a lot of blood loss during birth and that sort of thing, and that exacerbates blood deficiency issues, obviously. So I'll be looking to rebuild their blood, so I'll choose particular points that are about blood deficiency, but I'll also be looking at what drives them so that I can help them balance that out in order to rebuild their blood as well. So if they're struggling with self-worth issues and they have blood deficiency, that will only exacerbate their self-worth issues. So but we want to work on the core concept in order to solve the physical problem. So, and that's really what Chinese medicine is about, is really looking, they believe that all the physical ails that we have come from an emotional base. So we need to look at the emotional driver in order to solve the physical problem. So, yes. What else did we have on our little list to talk
whilst
about?
You're looking at your notes,
Yes.
from a yoga perspective, obviously yoga is driven more from Ayurvedic medicine.
Yep.
And I'm not an Ayurvedic practitioner, but I know that I can actually pick. So it's not driven by dates. It's driven by constitution. So I can pick a body type and say, oh, you're Kapha or you're Vata, and and I can see which ones. And it's almost like, the cracky joints. There's not enough oil in the body. So it's very driven by diet. So you can
absolutely
fix things by diet. But also the yoga poses that we do during class, our classes are quite gentle, and that's, all of that yin element, that's what we want during pregnancy. So we don't want to sort of like be having a very dynamic practice. It's actually not going to help you that much from a energetic perspective.
Yes. So I've learned a little bit about Indian medicine along the way, and a lot of the core concepts are very much the same. So I think that the body types you were talking about actually do loosely map to the Chinese
I'm sure they
5
do,
elements. And like you were saying with the oil in the joints, for me that is well, I mean, it's inflammation. There is a Chinese word for it, but no, that doesn't matter. But, you would probably be looking at some more essential fatty acids and things like that to help, as well as looking to make sure that qi or energy is flowing. So, and that's actually another thing too. When we are feeling stuck, which can happen with a new mum, you've all of a sudden, your life isn't about you. Like I often joke with friends, I remember the last time that I was able to pick up my handbag and just walk out the door. that was 12 years ago. So,
Even
things
my
do
handbag
change, and suddenly your life isn't just about you. It's, it's about this, this new life that you've created. So you can feel quite stuck, even without the postnatal depression deficiency piece. You can still have, more classic symptoms of depression, which is pretty much about feeling stuck. So, and when we're emotionally stuck, our chi or energy or the way that our body flows gets stuck as well. That will cause pain. So, and those cracky sort of joints, and that's actually, for me in a Chinese perspective, is actually stuck energy. So again, we use the acupressure points to move that on. We also will use some supplements. We don't really tend to into herbs unless we're specifically trained in that, which I'm not. But with supplements and tissue salts and some homeopathics and things like that, we'll actually draw that into what we're doing. So we actually draw from several therapies and bring it into one to work on, the physical stuff, the physical symptoms, but also those emotional drivers. So there's lots of pieces that we can pull from to bring together a therapy that's actually about helping you. So,
and the breathing techniques as well that we learn in class, like breath is so important.
Absolutely.
And it's always there, it's always right there for you, so you can draw on it at any time. If you know those techniques, you can really get yourself out of that anxiety cycle that you can start to spot when you're going into it. So using the breath in that way is really useful. Yes,
and again, from a Chinese perspective, that breath work is fantastic, because when we don't breathe well, we actually don't move our diaphragm, and the Chinese believe then that the chi gets stuck as well, because it's not being, from a Western perspective, your blood's not being oxygenated properly, which doesn't actually help you if you are struggling with emotional issues. But from the Chinese perspective, it means the chi isn't flowing the way that it's supposed to be, and blood as well. Yeah. So those sorts of things are really important. So I see a lot of mums in clinic, lots of mums, and we all are struggling to some degree with the similar sorts of things. So we're worried about our kids, we're worried about jobs potentially, we're worried about whether we should go back to work, shouldn't go back to work, should I take time for myself, should I not, all of those sorts of things.
Worry and guilt, it's the work of motherhood.
Absolutely. So, but what the most important thing to remember with that is you actually need to look after yourself first. So, and that's not to say abandon your kids and go and do whatever you like, but there's a meme that does around on Facebook so often, which is you can't pour from an empty cup. And that is so true. If you give everything that you have to the baby and to your other kids and husband and family and whatever else, and there's nothing left for you, then who's going to look after you if no one does, if you don't? So if you're not willing to put yourself first at any point, who's going to do that? So you do need to take that time for yourself. 10 minutes a day. I tell that to all of my clients. Just take 10 minutes a day. Do some yoga. So do the things that Caroline's teaching you. Do some meditation, the breathing exercises. Go for a walk. Go have a shower even. That can be really difficult some days. Just that 10 minutes. Everybody has 10 minutes. So,
and the other thing is, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
I get a lot of second-time mums call me, and they'll come and try a class, they love the class, and then they just can't commit to coming back again. And I get that it's really hard when you've got kids, but it's almost like they're waiting for somebody to give them permission to go do that. So what I learned, and it took me way too long to learn, but no one's going to give you that permission. You've just got to take it.
That's right.
Take it, and you know what? They'll cope. It's going to be okay.
That's true. And you need that for yourself, particularly coming back to talking about rebuilding your yin, rebuilding your blood, even rebuilding your energy as well. You need to rebuild that. So, we can help you, but, you need to help yourself as well. So it's your health, it's your well-being. So it's really important for you to make that decision to look after yourself. Even if you look at it from the perspective of, if I'm unable to do anything, who's going to look after my baby? You know?
Yeah.
So even if you are unable to choose to take that time for yourself, look at it as an investment in your baby. And, you know, that 10 minutes will make it easier for you to cope. If you're not so stressed, your baby won't react so much to your stress. Not to say that if that's an issue, don't beat yourself up over it. Just things need to change a bit.
But even whilst you're pregnant, your baby feels all the emotions that you're feeling too. So taking that time during pregnancy is just as important. Your baby will sense that relaxation when they're inside you.
That's true. So yes, and it's particularly while pregnant, making sure that you're looking after yourself in a variety of ways will make it easier for the rest of the pregnancy, for delivery, and for after, you know, when you think that the hard work's been done when you have the baby, and then you get to take it home. So yes. So any questions from anybody?
Whilst we're waiting for that, one of my favourite authors is Pinky McKay. I don't know if you've come across her work, but she's fabulous. And she's all about just giving yourself permission to not be supermom, just like smashing the supermom myth. Like, there is no such concept as a supermom.
Nope.
We don't need to try and be supermom and sort of have it all. It's not realistic. It's not.
No.
It's a front that people put on. It's what media portrays it as. It's not the reality. So let's just put that out there now.
That's right. Nobody tells you the bad stuff. And I think even before you have a baby, even if they do, you don't really listen because you think it can't be that bad. So I was actually talking to a friend the other day, and she was telling me about how she completely lost her shit in the supermarket at her 3-year-old and all of that. You know, we've all seen it. Probably a lot of us have done it. So, but she saw a mum with a newborn there who was looking at her saying, you know, oh, don't never do that to my child, you know. And she's turned around to this mum and she's like, this is you, 3 years time, this is you. And that's the thing. Everybody has really bad days. And that doesn't make you a bad mum. That just makes you a real mum. That makes you, you know, expressing her emotions, which isn't a bad thing. But you know, it's not perfect. So, but that doesn't mean that you need to beat yourself up and criticize yourself and judge yourself and all of those things that as mums we're all very good at doing, but not so beneficial for us. And particularly as mums, when we see other mums having a bad day in the shops, you know, just giving them a little bit of a encouragement or help if you can, or you know, so that makes such a difference. That's really trying to rebuild that community sort of thing that we don't necessarily have so much anymore. So
when do you know to go and get help?
That's an interesting one. You know what, if you feel like you're not coping, if you're feeling really tired, it's lasting more than a couple of weeks or so, that's probably a good time to, you know, if you're making, you know, try and make some changes yourself at home. Try the breathing techniques. Try to eat well, sleep when you can. Take that time to rest and rebuild and that sort of stuff. And if things aren't getting better for you, then that's, I think, the time to get help. I know I had postnatal depression when I was pregnant, or when I had my first one, and I didn't realise actually how unwell that I was. So, you know, maybe if other people, if you're not recognizing that within yourself, maybe when other people are around you are starting to ask questions about how you're feeling, are you coping and that sort of thing, then, you know, maybe if things are not going as well for you as you might have thought that they were, then that's probably a good time, I think, to get some help. So, the good thing with therapy like mine is you don't need to go and come and see someone like me 3 times a week. I'd probably see you every few weeks or things like that. So it doesn't have to be a very time-intensive thing, so that you can have, you know, a few weeks in between appointments to sort of help yourself and work on the tools and techniques that we've gone through to help rebuild. So make some changes and things like that. So, yeah.
And look, I think anxiety during pregnancy and after, like as a new mum, it's fairly like you kind of, how do I say this? Like, we're programmed to respond to our babies crying.
Yep.
Because that's how the babies get what they need, get their, physical and emotional needs met by crying. And so we are, as mums, we're programmed to respond to that quickly. And I know it, it used to, as a new mum, gosh, it would make me feel really anxious if my baby was crying.
Especially because I didn't understand a lot of the time what those cries were in the beginning.
So I do think, like, to a degree, it's normal to feel like that, but if it's starting to get out of control, then it's kind of that's when you need to get some help.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, on that note, things like colic and reflux and that sort of stuff with babies, even though it's very common, it's not normal. So I would really encourage you to, if you have a baby that's really suffering from those sorts of things, to actually speak to a naturopath, to speak to someone like me, even chiros and osteos and things like that, because your baby doesn't need to suffer. And also with yourself too, if things are not healing well and all of that sort of stuff, if your milk's not coming in very well, then there are other things that can be done to help you. So ask questions. So speak to lots of people. Obviously contact people like us to ask questions, or for referrals or things like that, so that you can, work out for yourself what is and isn't normal, what can be helped, what can be done, that sort of thing. So you don't have to suffer alone. There are lots of people.
And I don't think it means, necessarily you're taking antidepressants. Like that's if you go to a GP, then perhaps, depending on your GP, that might be what their suggestion. Doesn't necessarily mean that's the only solution.
No. Particularly with depression. I actually work part-time for a pharmaceuticals company, and I absolutely agree that pharmaceuticals have their place. I have taken them myself for my depression, but what I didn't know at the time thanks Eva, we're trying to be sideways. What I didn't know at the time was that things like my B vitamins and magnesium and those sorts of things could have been addressed, which would have helped with depression as well. So there's lots and lots of options for you. What you need to do is particularly take on all the advice. Mums are very good at giving advice. Everyone's good at giving advice to a new mum, but take on the advice and then, sift through it and work out what sits well with your values and what you think and what you know, and then ask questions. And again, reevaluate whether that sits with your values. So that's really, really important, because that baby has chosen you, or your babies, if you've got more than one, they've chosen you for a reason. You're the right mum for that baby. So, you do know, even though it may not feel like it, you do know what's most important for you and your baby. So it's just a matter of harnessing that and connecting to it to find out what you need.
Wonderful. Any final questions before we wrap up? We've just discovered that we've been sideways the whole time. That's terrible.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alice. That was wonderful. I hope that you all enjoyed that. If you have any questions, what we might do actually is pop Alice's contact details as a comment below if you want to get in touch with her. But if you have any questions for Alice, she's in the group, so you're more than welcome to type them below, and I'm sure Alice will respond either individually or add to the group.
No problem at all.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next month.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.